Hello everyone! I am so excited to be here with you tonight. We have a little bit of a different evening planned. We have a whole series of holiday crafts planned for you. Julie, Ashley, and I all developed these really great projects for you to do in the winter months and stay busy. And what that does mean, though, is they are pre-recorded. So you are watching Facebook Live, but it's a pre-recorded Facebook Live. And the reason we're doing that is so we can really dive into the conversation feed and respond to your questions and comments. And this is really going to be a treat for me because as a presenter, I can't watch the comments and make things with my hands and somehow manage to look straight ahead. I would knock so many more things off of this table if I were trying to do all of that. So that's why I always have Julie here with me to feed me your questions. And she is here with me tonight. And she'll chime in every now and then. And of course, I have Rick here with me as well, but I am officially in two places at once, and that is super cool. So you are watching me here on the screen, but when Blick Art Materials responds to your comments, that's gonna be me, and I'm really excited to really see what everyone says and dive into really good, specific answers, I hope. We'll see. Future me. Bar is set. All right, so let's get into this project. Wait, we, as always, are giving away a $100 e-gift card. Let's get all the business out of the way before I get into this project. So to be eligible for that $100 e-gift card, all you have to do is like us, follow us, and future me is going to put in that comment section a question for you to respond to get some conversations going. And I'm excited to see what you all come up with. With that all said, now I can talk about this project that I am so excited about. This is a felt poinsettia garland. And I have a little flower here, unattached, that I can show you. And this is a project that, I'm not gonna lie to you all, it's very laborious. You're going to cut out so many felt leaves and so many little petals. So I just wanna promise you up front, it is well worth all of the effort. When I look at this piece behind me, it brings me so much joy. And all that work I've put into it is really well worth it. All right, so I have a template here, and you can click the link in the description on the Facebook post. We'll throw it up there in the feed for you. And that will take you to our Blick's website, where I have a list of steps, some basic steps I'm going through here tonight, as well as a materials list. All this fun felt that I'm using, this is Kunin felt. It's a really thick felt. It is amazing. That is in that materials list. And I have a lovely template for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut out a petal just to demo how I'm doing this. And notice I'm not being very precious with it because I'm going to be cutting out a lot of petals and a lot of leaves. I will say sometimes it's helpful. I didn't think to bring one up here with me, but sometimes I do like to trace a template with a Sharpie first, just to give a little border room for myself. Oh, where can we find the template? Yes. It is on the bundle page on our website. And to get to that, all you need to do is click that little bit.ly link that's in the description. And we'll throw it up there for you again. All right, so I'm not going to cut out all of my leaves. I have some here, or petals. I have some here that are pre-cut, but I do want to show you the method I used for cutting out the petals, because there are so many. There are a few ways you can go about it. You could lay your petal out, lay your template out, and really trace each and every one, just down the line. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that is what you want to do, by all means, go for it. But in my opinion, it just seemed like a lot of work to trace the thing and then cut the thing, and yeah, it got to be a bit much. So I have found what I can do is, I'm going to set that aside. So I just have a little piece folded over here that I cut out from my larger sheet. And I'm going to place my petal right on top. And I'm just going to cut from there. I have found if you're trying to cut more than 2 layers at once, this is really good premium felt, and it's gonna be hard to cut through a lot of layers, but you can do 2 at once, which is nice. So you get sort of double the payoff for your work there. And I really wanna talk about these scissors. These are amazing scissors. They are in the materials list on our bundle page, and I actually listed them on there as optional. Because initially my thought was, everybody has scissors, right? Like you've got, but these are amazing. You're cutting out a lot of leaves, and these are spring assisted. So what that means is I'm only pressing down with my hand to cut, and it opens all on its own. And it seems like a little thing, but that saves me from having to open up the scissors every time. And when you're talking about repetitive motion like that, it is a lifesaver. So that is my plug for. These are Fisker's Easy Action. And
what were the little ones that you—
The little ones, they are also Fisker's Easy Action. Just Easy Action minis. So these are really fun. And they are fabric scissors as well, so they're super sharp. I will say if you're working with kiddos, one, they're good scissors, so just never give your good scissors to kiddos. They will always find a way to ruin them, or even worse, they'll end up hurting themselves. So you want to be careful there. Okay, something else that is an optional material is this lovely Kunin corduroy felt. So it's smooth on one side, and then it has this ridge pattern. And I have found, and I didn't use it for all of the flowers, these I used the regular thick felt, but this is a little bit thinner. And what that means is I can get a different kind of stamen from it, that centerpiece of a flower where all of its pollen is usually, right? So I just cut out a little piece, and then to make your stamen, you're going to cut, and I usually use my scissors to pace it at intervals. And this can be pretty random. It's not going to show if they're different sizes, but I do fear this is making a loud noise, so well, maybe it's not. Rick would let me know. That's why I always have friends in the studio with me. All right, so I'm just going to cut along, and do be careful you don't snip your finger. Okay, one more. And so what that does is it makes a little inner fringe in a way. And you'll be able to see it a little better in a moment. I'm gonna set this aside. Okay, so what is my flower being built on? How is this all coming together? I have some sculpture wire here, and I've used this in a few projects before. I think Julie has too. Oh yes, it's a great thing. It's really sturdy, but it's aluminum, so it bends easily, but it also stays after you've bent it. It's a great thing. If you're not familiar with sculpture wire and if you haven't worked with it before, I highly suggest that you do. Try. I'm going to cut this with my not favorite pair of scissors because it does cut easily, but those are precious over there, okay? All right, and I cut this shorter than what I recommend in the instructions. I recommended that you have at least 12 inches for your flower stem. But I was worried it might become a little unwieldy up here, so I made it a little bit shorter for the demo. Put this away. Another thing, you'll see I'm using hot glue here, and you can use other glues. This is usually always a question, is what else can I use? I just put a little bead there. And I've found that Aleene's tacky glue, the bottle here, this can certainly be used with felt, and it just takes a really long time for it to dry. You'll need lots of clothespins to hold it all together, and I'm not gonna make you all wait on Facebook Live that whole time. It's just not gonna be practical. So I'm definitely gonna do the demo with hot glue. And that is also in the materials list as an option. We've got lots of options for you on this project. I put just another little bead. Since I did a little plug for Fiskars though, I do want to say I learned something really interesting recently about Aleene's tacky glue, and I think you'll like this, Julie. I was making a joke with a friend about who is this Aleene? And realized Aleene was a real person who actually developed that glue for her own use. She found that other glues just were not good enough for what she wanted to do with them. She was doing floral arrangements, and so she formulated her own glue, eventually got it like made into a product and dispersed, and actually had a craft show and a whole Aleene's empire in the 80s. And I just love that story. Like I sort of stumbled onto it randomly, and it was so fun.
It's inspiring.
It is really inspiring, yes. So maybe there's a product out there that you think you could make better, and yeah, go for it. Okay, so what I was doing while I was talking about Aleene there was just wrapping that band that I had made around the edge of my sculpture wire. So it looks like really complicated and intricate now in there, but it's not at all. It's just fringe looped around. All right, hopefully I was holding it up high enough so you could see it as I was doing it. All right, so now for some petals. Like I said, I wasn't going to cut out all of the petals because it can take some time. I have some pre-cut. And in the template, there are small, medium, and large petals. And you want 3 of the small, and then 6 of the medium, and 5 or 6 of the large ones. kind of depends on how the others end up laying out in the end. And you just want to start with a drop of hot glue. And I am going to give a little safety PSA here. I am definitely using my hot glue on low temp. If you do use hot glue for this project, you want it to be a low temperature hot glue gun. It can be dual temp, you just want to have that option. And that is, sometimes I think it's a misconception that it's going to burn your felt if it's on a high temp. It's not so much that it'll burn your felt. Suppose you could if you really hung out there with the nozzle on your felt for a really long time. That wouldn't really happen, right? It's more that you will burn yourself and then you will be cursing me. So please don't burn yourself with the hot glue. I don't want any holiday curses. I'm gonna plug that back in.
What brand is that?
Oh, yes, this is a Surebonder, and it's actually one that can be, it has a cord, and you can take it off of the cord and use it for 2 to 5 minutes, depending. If you had it set on high temp and unplugged it, you would have probably 5 minutes of working time. With low temp, it's a little shorter because it's not, obviously, because it's not as hot to start with. So what I've done here is I've made almost like, I think of it as a triangle. And at this point, I can turn this upside down. See if I can get it to stay. Maybe not. I'll need more leaves. Give me a moment. I said leaves, but you all know I meant petals. All right. So then you want to fill in that space between the two. And you just wrap it around. And for you all doing this at home, more on the hot glue, you can see I'm just like jumping right in there. I would recommend you let it cool for just a little bit even before touching it, even when it's on the low setting. It doesn't bother me, but again, I don't want anyone to be burned. And I do not have very heat sensitive hands, so that's my own thing there. All right, so now I have another triangle, and you can sort of see those peeking out. When I flip it over, it's this lovely, and we're just gonna keep going in that kind of a pattern. I'll try to speed it up for you. You're probably getting the idea by now, but I don't want to cut it short and leave anybody with questions about what's really happening here. And you can see it is sort of building on the base. You are working down as you go around. You do want to stagger them. The nice thing about hot glue is it dries quickly, but you do have some good working time with it as well. You can move something if you get it in the wrong spot. Okay, so it looks more like a flower now, and I just have some large petals to add. And you really only need a drop. A little bit of hot glue goes a long way. And I'm sort of pressing and wrapping it around that wire. You can even, if you feel like you need to, you can make a little cut just a little notch, and that can help you wrap it around the wire a little bit better. One more. At this point, I can pretty much do this upside down, but I've made a lot of flowers, you guys. So you might find it's easier to hold it while you're working on it, and that is perfectly okay. I don't want you to think you should have a different technique or anything like that. All right, one more petal. All right, so that is my flower, my lovely poinsettia. Gonna open this up some, and I have some larger ones here, but you know, I think I might want to work with this smaller one that I just made. Again, this project can get, as you're building, and you want it to be nice and long, right? You want to have that length to it, but because there is a wire inside, as you will see in a moment, it can also get a little bit, I don't know the right word for it. It's not unwieldy by any means, and it's certainly not heavy, but you'll find you might kind of whack into something on your table. So you want to be careful with that. I have a piece of felt here. I'm going to use gray leaves. So I have a piece of gray felt that I've just cut into a 1-inch strip. And I don't want my flower at the very end for this one. You certainly can, and I did for this example piece. But I'm going to put this in the middle, and then I can also show you how you would be attaching another piece as you work your way down in sections. So I've just bent my sculpture wire as much on a 90-degree angle as possible, and I've straightened out the wire as much as relatively possible. And I am just really gonna load up on hot glue here. But notice I'm not going to the far end of either side. I am only using glue where I know there will be a wire. I'll refill that. You want to leave a little bit on the end, and now I'm just folding it over on itself, working my way down. All right, I think that's, you can always trim off a little bit, or you can add more hot glue there if a gap bothers you, which I'll go ahead and do quickly. All right. You may notice I'm trying not to pick the hot glue off of my fingers as it sort of gets there. And that's really because the more hot glue I have on my fingers, the more protection I have from being burned by hot glue later on. All right, I have another piece of wire here, and make this the length of. I'm really just doing this at this point to show you how I would attach another piece. You don't want to have gaps without wire, because what will happen is if there's a spot with no wire and there's wire on either side, it's gonna flop, and it doesn't really matter how you bend it or try to move it, you're always going to have that space that is more of just a gap. So we're going to pretend I am continuing my piece. I'm going to load up on hot glue again. Always leave a little bit at the end that is open. And that is so that you can continue adding to the piece. Also, just the nature of this project, it's hard to work on more than one small section at a time. So there's really no reason to sort of seal off and make the whole length before putting leaves on or anything like that. There's no real benefit to it. So work in sections, give yourself time. Okay. All right, so now the fun part. I'm going to turn this over. And, well, actually, before I do that, I have a few pre-cut leaves here, and I just wanted to show you there are different ways that you can seal off and make your leaf structure. So I could go on what I call this the long end. It's just a little bit pointier, right? You just want a little bit of glue. You're going to close that up. And you may find, because you're going to be making so very many leaves, it can be helpful to use clothespins for that process or that portion as well. You can see it does dry quickly enough. So that one was on the long end. This one I'm going to do on the shorter. I mean, it's still pointy, but you can see it's more, the axis is closer to this side. So I'm going to put a little drop of glue there, spread it around, and close that off. And you can see I've gotten very different leaf shapes, and that was from the same leaf template. And that is really going to be artist's choice for you as to which one you want to use. I found I preferred this sort of fuller leaf, but I did do some switching up in places. For this one, maybe you can see that. I know Rick can't zoom in for me, but this one does have one of those pointier leaves. And I used a slightly darker gray felt just to make it a little bit different from the leaves on the body of the Garland. So I have some leaves already hot glued for you. Grab them from my magic cart down there. Okay, lots of leaves. More than I need for this little section, but I'm going to turn this upside down. Move these over here. And decide in the very beginning, you'll need to decide which way you want to work with your leaves. I find because I'm right-handed, it's easier to have the point going to my left. And you just add a little bit of glue along what I'm going to call the stem of the leaf. And you place it. I'm just going to do a few of these so you get the idea of what is making this pattern. And you can, of course, place them randomly and at different intervals, but I am a fan of consistency in this project, at least. You're going to be cutting out a lot of leaves. I keep saying it, but you will be. And this way, I know exactly how many I can get in 1 foot of garland. So I can actually plan that way, and I make sure my point rests right there on the other leaf. It also gives me, I'll put a few more on so you can see it, It ensures that the base is covered. Go under that one and on here. Kind of pull that down a little bit. All right, just 2 more. So you get the idea. And my point is on the edge of that leaf. Press it in. You'll notice, yeah, I'm sort of putting the new leaf underneath the one before and then against the garland stem. So when I flip it over, get my flower out of the way there, you can see that it is covering up the stem, and it's also covering up, you know, sort of what's going on under there while getting the most out of each leaf. So that is pretty much the basis of this project. You just keep doing that over and over and over again. And this is really a project that, because it is so time consuming, it can seem a little daunting. But not only is the payoff well worth it, but there's no reason it can't be a fun process from the beginning. Cutting out all of these leaves, you know, it's the holidays. Gather your family, your friends, put on your favorite holiday movie or some music, have some eggnog, and cut out some felt shapes. It'll be a good time, I promise. And this is, it's a great way to bond and spend time together. I know everyone has different family traditions around this time of the year, and it's always fun to do a craft, I think. I didn't actually have a very crafty family, so I always enjoy doing crafts myself. I have, you know, families that get together and make gingerbread houses, and whether they're like silly themed or very, very serious, beautiful, professional looking things, just gives you a great time to hang out and catch up on what's happened in the year. Okay, I've just brought out probably more than I should have because you won't be able to see it all. Put this one away for now. Leave a couple leaves out. Okay, I just wanted to show you a different base that could be used. I like using the wire quite a bit. You can do some really fun stuff with it. So I have this piece here, and you could imagine this could be something used as a tablescape centerpiece. You can actually position and move it in different ways, and it sets quite nicely on a flat surface. The one hanging behind me is also on a wire base, and that allowed me to really shape it the way that I wanted to, versus just sort of plopping something down. But maybe you want a sort of floppy garland, and that is fine. It's your holiday, and it's your decoration. I could also, I hadn't even thought of this before, but this could even almost become like a scarf type thing, right? And it's soft, and it's felt, it's warm. But you're also gonna need more leaves, because while these can rest flat against a surface, and you can bend the wire so your leaves are always facing the right way, if it's on a flexible support like this piece of rope, you're not gonna have that kind of control. So you're really gonna have to get your friends and family together to make this one. But I left a little bit of it unfinished to show you how I worked it out. It's the same leaf pattern, and then obviously I would continue with this brown color, but I then turn over and do a whole nother series of leaves. Same pattern though. You just keep alternating. But that gives you this, pardon me, that gives you this like two-sided effect. And it gives you a little bit of a fuller garland. You can even do that when there's a wire in the center. It's just, it doesn't require it to be done. Also for the flowers on this one, because I don't want the wire to go through the rope and I don't want it to make it stiff in places, I've used a smaller copper gauge wire. I believe this is 18 gauge. Yeah. And I doubled it over in a loop inside. So this is one piece folded over on itself. You make the flower as you did before, and then to attach it, let's see, find a place where it's more reasonable. Say I wanted one on the end here. You just move your leaves out of the way, fold them back, and you just wrap that on. And I would trim off the excess, maybe even make a, almost like a twist tie, and then trim it. All right, so that completes that one. I'll finish it later. And a few other things you can add. If you're wanting to cut down on the number of leaves that you're using, if you've had enough, you can always think of other fun fillers, right? Like I love the look of cranberry and dried orange garlands with the wooden beads, and they smell so good. And why not add some wooden beads? So this one has some beads in there, some little pom-pom berries, and you can really sort of extend it that way. You could put more than 3 in, I promise. You could add a little length to it that way. Goodness, I think I've gone over everything. Those are all my examples. Julie has, yes.
I have a question.
Yeah, Julie.
What are you wearing on top of your head?
Yes.
Can you show us
I
that?
almost forgot again. All right, so another thing you can do with this, I'm gonna take this out. I did make a little headpiece for myself because I really like art that I can wear and things that I can show off even when I'm not at home. So this is, oh goodness, I don't know what I would call it because it's actually still on sculpture wire. It looks a little scary actually, and that's because I put it together right before we shot this. And if you are going to make this yourself, I'm going to say cover those ends in felt. Do a nice little wrapping, some hot glue. You don't want to poke yourself in the head. You don't want to tear out your hair. But it's really fun, isn't it? And for this one, I also, you might notice there are some beads. And I used, again, a really thin copper wire, threaded those beads on there, sort of made a random loop and a knot. There was really no planning involved in the shape of this stamen. It was scrunch up those beads on that wire. And I made it very similar to, oh, I already tied it on that one. I made it very similar to the one that looped, where I was taking a piece of wire and sort of fold it in on itself like that, and then built my flower around. Of course, I just grabbed sculpture wire because I had some right there. You would be using a really thin copper wire. And then that wire is attached to the sculpture wire. So thank you, Julie, for bringing that up. And it did remind me again, one last thing, I promise, and then you can go cut out all of your leaves and petals. Because this is such a high quality premium felt, I really wish, like, you're gonna have to order it, but feel this felt, and it is amazing. It's really, really thick felt. And that means you can shape it just by pulling and tugging, basically. So you don't want to like pull it apart. I always like to hold the flower sort of at the base, so I'm not going to just yank a petal out, but then just sort of twisting and pulling, maybe do a little, and it's going to kind of stay like that for a while because you've stretched those fibers out, you've stressed it. You have some stressed out felt, which is a good thing, turns out, because you can make these fun shapes. And it looks a little bit more natural, and it really doesn't take much. Just gonna work my way around on this one. You can tell I'm not really planning on how I'm twisting this. I'm just grabbing petals and going one direction or the other. And then in the end, it's got a little bit more dimension to it, I think, right? Look at that. Okay, so I promised you that was the very last thing, and it was. Definitely answer that prompt. I forgot to remind you while I was so involved in this really fun project. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of time, a little extra time, to answer that prompt that's in the comments. That is going to automatically enter you to win a $100 e-gift card. You will also have to like and follow us on Facebook. But who doesn't want $100 to spend at Blick right now? You could buy yourself some felt or get everyone's presents. Spread that love around. All right, everyone. Well, I am going to announce the winner in the chat feed. I hope I answered all of your questions well enough in the chat feed. Future me there, out there answering those questions. And I look forward to the rest of all of these wonderful holiday projects.